Hi ladies and gentlemen, I am Vitold and here are two mid-size adventure bikes that many of you are talking about and like talking about. Especially KTM owners who got their KTMs taken out of the game due to some malfunctions. Never mind, here is the KTM 890 Adventure and Suzuki V-Strom 800D in a head-to-head comparison. After riding and analyzing these two and in fact all other middleweight adventure bikes, and also large adventure ones, I'll tell you which one does what exactly better. Now, this video is divided into separate categories so that you may clearly assess certain areas of these two bikes. KTM comes from Europe, Suzuki from Asia, and they are quite different. Before I start going into details, remember that we are all different and your preferences may not be the same as your colleagues, as mine, and as somebody else's. I do value performance, for example, and I do like comfort. You may care more about luggage, storage, and off-roading, but, well, that's unlikely, obviously. One of these bikes is a fairly complete package, but the other one, man, it may grab you by your heart, but you may still think it's gonna be worth it. So let's start off with the first category, which is engine and performance. Suzuki's engine is a two-cylinder inline engine, just like in the KTM 890 Adventure. It's got 776 cubic centimeters, while KTM has 889 cubic centimeters, so over 100 more. Suzuki has 84 horsepower, while KTM has 105. And then in terms of torque, you'll get 78 Newton meters available from Suzuki and 100 from KTM. These are certain differences, but they feel much larger in real life. Suzuki accelerates while KTM shoots forward like a rocket. Suzuki is not bad in terms of flexibility, but loses its breath at higher RPM, while KTM is totally effortless and provides great flexibility. Suzuki has good heat management, but vibrates terribly. KTM doesn't vibrate terribly, but has terrible heat problems. Yeah, it's a big issue in a KTM on a warmer day, unless you're on a highway. Quick shifter in Suzuki is rather hard, and KTM does it better here. There are no heat management issues in Suzuki. Now, power of the KTM is so accessible that you feel forced and happy to use it. It is bloody addictive and I'm loving it. So KTM absolutely wins here unless you care about not being boiled to death on a warm day in the city. It's fun to ride, but you cannot stop. Now deal with that, I guess. The second area is handling, and here is where Suzuki scores a lot, especially at lower speeds, excluding totally crawling speeds of up to 20 kilometers per hour. Above that and up until around 80 kilometers per hour, it's unbeatable. And as if it was to switch directions on its own, like being mind controlled. At higher speeds, it's hard to force to turn, so a bit disappointing. KTM is more consistent, so it does great at all speeds. It is nimble at lower speeds, including the lowest, the crawling speeds, and it's not becoming bad at higher speeds, even though it needs some encouraging to start turning and to tighten the turns at higher speeds. It's got a big wheel in the front, so what do we expect? A taller bike. Still, it is good. It's doing much better than Suzuki overall there, and at the lowest speeds as well. So up to 20 kilometers per hour, there is a winner in the form of KTM. From 20 to 80 kilometers per hour, Suzuki is better. Over 80 kilometers per hour, KTM again. 2 out of 3 go to KTM, and it's never bad, so it wins. Now let's talk about a very important aspect of any motorcycle, so suspension. Both bikes ride on 21-inch rims in the front, but then Suzuki has a 17-inch rim in the rear, while KTM has a 18-inch one. The difference is that KTM uses tubeless tires while Suzuki doesn't, which is a downside for it and a weird idea from Suzuki in the first place. On the other hand, there are 22 centimeters of suspension travel in Suzuki and 20 centimeters in KTM, a bit less. Both bikes have their front ends dive when braking with a front brake, but Suzuki is more comfortable overall. KTM seems to be on the stiffer side there, so I would summarize Suzuki as a very comfortable bike, while I wouldn't say the same about KTM, but rather that the experience is rather average on it. I much rather prefer what Suzuki gives me, and so it wins here in this area. Fourth thing to assess is seat and position comfort. Here we've got 85.5 centimeters of seat height of Suzuki versus 84 or 86 of adjustable seat height in the KTM. It's already a plus for KTM, especially that it is super rare in this segment to find a bike with an adjustable seat height. Not sure why, but at least KTM gives us that. It also gives us a fairly comfortable seat that is not too hard once you realize that after some time. Suzuki does it even better in terms of the seat. KTM is very comfortable, but Suzuki has a tiny bit better seat, which is super crazy awesome. Posture on the KTM is more comfortable to me due to better handlebar positioning, still for me. I'm 1 meter 83 centimeters tall or 6 feet tall. Foot pegs are better in a V-Strom 800D, especially that the gear lever in KTM is mounted too high and so it's hard to reach, and that is troublesome. Overall, I was getting tired of holding the bars in Suzuki while on a KTM. I could go all day just being bothered a bit about weirdly mounted foot pegs and the levers down there. KTM wins overall, but if you're very much into comfort of sitting, you've got to go to powerseats.eu and check out an electric office chair like mine there, or the one from Rolls-Royce Phantom that is available from 2025. Amazing stuff, guys. Now, moving further to wind protection. There is a theoretically adjustable windscreen in Suzuki and a non-adjustable one in KTM. I said theoretically, as there is also theoretically a point for Suzuki there, but the adjustment requires tools, so there is not much use of it. It's almost like having another windscreen to install. Almost there, but it's a bit screwed up in the end. Thanks for trying anyway. Above 80 km per hour, the setup is not very helpful, but it doesn't generate too much turbulences, thankfully. KTM is on the other sphere, with a windscreen that is too good for hot weather, as it's unusually successful in protecting you from the wind. It's very surprising, but super successful at the same time. Great for traveling, not so great for city riding in the summer. It is a pity that there is no adjustment, and it's absent when you need it to get a top score in this category from me. Still, it is a big deal, and KTM has it done very well, in fact, so KTM for the win here. What about the brakes now? Alright, so both bikes have them good and strong. No issues there. In Suzuki, the front brake needs to be pulled hard. That's the only thing that you gotta remember, while on KTM it's challenging to even use the rear brake since its lever is located quite high, which makes it hard to reach without lifting the whole foot. It's all fine with the front brake. Now let me put it this way. KTM wins as I feel that its brakes are stronger and easier to dose, just a little bit. That's how I see it. And you've got to keep in mind that the ease of use is better in Suzuki, so at least you can reach that rear brake. That is very hard to reach in KTM, so keep that in mind. Then how I see drivetrain is fairly easy, as both of these beasts use chain drive, so it's boring, easy, fairly light, and not that cool of a solution. But because of this, it's obviously a tie with no winners but just losers to me as a fan of a driveshaft solution. Anyway, let's move further to fuel tanks, where amazingly both bikes again have something of the same, the capacity of 20 liters. This is decent and I'm glad to see that. Good job by both brands, and we've got a tie again. Where we don't is the ninth category, which is weight. Here, first on paper, we've got some differences, as Suzuki carries 230 kilograms with fuel, while KTM is lighter with 215 kilograms. Suzuki feels lighter when moving, but KTM, lighter than it appears when it starts moving, but KTM looks and feels even smaller, and it seems to me more manageable physically. It just feels like it's more under physical control than Suzuki, and I appreciate that. Suzuki does well, but KTM wins here. And it's time for a comparison of tech. Suzuki has riding modes, LED front light, quick shifter, and can have heated grips. That's basically it. Not counting the adjustability of the windscreen, but I'll mention the one push start, which is a feature that I do like indeed. But there's no cruise control, which maybe there in KTM, for example. KTM also has riding modes. It can have heated grips, and it also can have heated seats. It's got a really awesome display too. Quick shifter can be there if you pay extra for it, which is a bit pathetic. Still, KTM can be equipped slightly better than Suzuki, mostly considering cruise control and heated seats. KTM wins here. Also feels like a more modern bike because of its display. The 11th thing to talk about is sound. Exhaust sound, to be specific. Now, Suzuki here is very quiet and it doesn't sound like having especially big balls. Let me remind you that both bikes have two-cylinder inline engines. KTM is louder and it produces a fine sound. It's just growling better than Suzuki, and I do like that more. I also understand that this is a personal thing, while for me KTM does it significantly better stock, at least, than Suzuki, and it is my winner in the super freaking important category as it's more juicy and throaty. Suzuki sounds very mechanical and clunky in comparison, at least from the rider's perspective when you're sitting and riding. And I'm not kidding that this thing is very, very important. What should I say about the design? I'll say three things. First being that it's again very subjective and rather totally subjective. Second is that KTM is not pretty at all and it looks like a baby of something more serious. For example, a KTM 1290 Adventure series that may look like a B, so this would be a small B, I suppose. Not appealing very much as the proportions are off and it just doesn't look very, very muscular. The third thing to say is that Suzuki may have better proportions from the side, but it's ugly as horse poop. It's hard to say which one wins, but Suzuki definitely loses. And if so, the remaining one is KTM as it's less weird. But yeah, these two are hard to beat in terms of shitty looks. Now let's step up the game and take a look at price and value for money. Considering that KTM has a more powerful engine and some more technological advancements, let's focus on the base price of the two. Now, this unveils a certain difference, which in this case is at the level of 38%. This is how much more expensive KTM is compared to Suzuki. And this ruins everything, doesn't it? For that money, you can have Suzuki V-Strom 1050 and still have some money left for accessories, and it's still less than for the KTM 890 Adventure that you see here. This is ridiculous, and there is no situation in the world where I would support such a purchase. I see that in 2025, prices of some motorcycles, especially European ones, have gone even more nuts than a year before. I'm shocked, and obviously Suzuki is more attractive to buy, and even considering value for money. Suzuki wins here despite not being actually super attractive as a purchase at all in the first place, but yeah, anyway, these are terrible and sad times. But let's forget about that for a moment and focus on the last category, which is the X factor. This one we all love, right? Well, I definitely do, as it's a definition of how much I would be eager to just jump on a given bike and just, ride it around. And I would gladly do that on a Suzuki as it turns nicely at lower speeds, but there's no comparison to just accelerating like crazy on a KTM and feeling how easy it is for it to fly forward no matter what. This is truly impressive and exciting. It also handles well, so there is a lot to like in this bike. If I had them both placed one next to the other, I would choose KTM for a ride. And it's addictive. It wins in the X factor. In the end, we've got Suzuki taking a win in suspension and price and value for money categories. Actually, I haven't even realized that it's been that much one-sided, but clearly KTM wins in engine and performance category, in handling, seat and position comfort, wind protection, brakes, weight, tech, sound, design. Well, that's if we call that a win anyway. And in the X factor category, not bad for KTM. And now I believe that this is when the word of reliability would be brought up by some, but not this time. Nothing really happened during my time with both bikes, just something was rattling in KTM's front suspension, so never mind that. I would say that both of these bikes can be considered somewhat good hooligan bikes, but KTM is just more crazy due to its engine. Maybe not crazy, but it can be more crazy. Suzuki feels bigger, larger and more serious, so it may be a nicer bike for longer travels. It is also more comfortable in terms of seat and in terms of suspension. It also won't fry you on a summer ride in the city, which may be a real deal breaker in a KTM. And this is serious, actually. This bike becomes so hot that riding it for longer in the city only may become unbearable. And yes, that's that. And you've got to consider it. I personally would have to think long and hard as I would choose KTM for all purposes, just to have access to that fun engine and easy handling. But I'm not sure I would be happy to ride it during the season, the motorcycling season, and suffer every time. Hopefully there is some solution to that, like an insulating tape to be installed on the exhaust or whatever is becoming so hot. Otherwise, it is a disaster, which you guys have to consider. Tell me what you think and which one you guys would choose and why. That's it from me. I hope you found it useful, and for more in-depth details, check my full reviews of these bikes linked in the description of the video. See you there.